Good morning, everybody. Wow, I think you can hear me in the back. Excellent. Wanted to start off really with kind of the history of using technology within emergency management with our division. And it started before I started with the division. In 1996, our division, South Carolina Emergency Management Division, began working with the University of South Carolina to start working with this new tool called the internet, and using a Netscape browser, logging into a program that we called IRIS, right? And IRIS was an internet routed information system. Whoa, right? We even had our own acronym back in '96, so the tradition still goes. But all IRIS would do for us was a resource requesting module and a significant event log of actions that were deemed significant. And I'm sure, today significant event log and resource request is still the bread and butter of any system that you may be using, because keeping track of resources and keeping track of information are critical. With that being said, you're probably still struggling with what is a significant event. A significant event in a municipality, a small municipality compared to a large municipality, is night and day in difference. And then how do you categorize and catalog all these different significant events to gain situational understanding? Because when a big event happens and you've got 10,000 significant events, what's significant, right? So these are some of the challenges that we were facing early on. And we ran that program with the university, cutting edge internet technology access, and yet, and then as typical, the commercial sector catches up, and a commercial off-the-shelf vendor that is a national leader rolled out and said, hey, we've got a tool that you can have that's much cheaper than what you're currently spending with your university contract. So we did. We bought in. We invested. Now, this internet was still pretty sketchy, right? If you remember, I had to dial up from home with a 28K baud modem with the staticky noise and all that kind of stuff in order to check in the 90s. Early even 2000s. So the need to have redundancy was a kind of a critical component for us. So we went and not only had an instance of this commercial off-the-shelf version for state use, but we went and bought an instance for all 46 of our counties. So significant investment to keep track of emergency management process through a commercial off-the-shelf system. As any technologies, the servers start to get old and things start to move along, and now you've got to upgrade equipment, maybe increase some horsepower, add this new stuff called RAM, and you're off to the races. So that's kind of our initial approach at technology, again, in the 90s, moving into the 2000s. Now, there's a lot of gray hair in here. So for a demonstration to start off with, who went to college and had the luxury of a cell phone in your pocket while you were at college? Anybody see? You had one in your car, a mobile.
It wouldn't fit in my pocket.
Now, yeah, now with that, would your cell phone fit into your pocket at that stage? So this is kind of where I was coming from. In the 90s, I was at USC. They used to call it the USC, but California didn't like that. So University of South Carolina, we basically just had to walk around campus without a cell phone looking for people. So I can't imagine a college experience without one of these. I mean, it would just be such a time saver. 25-acre campus, you're driving all around. Have you seen Fred? Fred? Where's Fred? And, it was miserable. And now you see these students, they're in class just texting away. So technology has come a long way. I started with emergency management in 2001, 1 month after 9/11. So my exposure coming in was just before that the dams broke with federal funding from the Homeland Security side. And prior to that, I was a high school science teacher. So I left the classroom after 4.5 years. Most teachers don't make it past 5. I tell people that I took a less stressful career in emergency management. It was kind of my role in getting there. I started in the training area, so I sat in the back and listened to all these courses and fell in love with emergency management. From there, in 2003, some money came out from Homeland Security that had to be spent on WMD exercises. I don't know if any of y'all tinkered with those, so it was a significant pot of money. So we did 21 exercises in 21 months. 5 of those were full scales, and some of them had over 1,000 participants. You want to learn emergency management? Exercise. That was the way I really kind of caught on and learned. So with the knowledge of emergency management, with this new idea of technology and trying to bring everybody up to the 21st century, NIMS rolling out as this collaborative process to bring agencies together and work through disasters, seeing that time and time again fail on the incident sites, seeing EOCs that were kind of sitting around waiting for something to happen, then the phone would ring, then their emergency would become our emergency at the state, right? I need a generator and I need it yesterday. Now you knew the power was going to be out, the storm was coming, why are you just now asking for the generator? The ice is all over the roads, we're not going to be able to solve this problem. So without forward thinking, without leaning forward, trying to adapt technology, trying to adapt new doctrine, trying to bring agencies together, innovation became our solution. And how we did that is really is a long learning process that started in the 90s. But as was mentioned, we really went through a crucible here in the last 6 years. 6 major disaster declarations. Now, from a Texas standpoint, where everything is big in Texas, nothing on the scale of Texas. So don't let me make you think from that perspective. But we've had some pretty significant events. Hurricane Florence was a 3-week plus activation for us in our state EOC for 24-hour operations. We had not run that long, that hard for any of our preceded history prior to Hurricane Hugo in 1989. So we went 9 years without a major disaster declaration, and then suddenly it's bang, 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 bang. When you add all these up, this is about $1 billion worth of federal aid through PA and HMGP is in terms of setting size, scope, and scale of what I'm talking about. So for states that haven't had a major disaster declaration in a long time, your PA processes and damage assessment has probably gotten a little rusty, right? There's been all this new model stuff rolled out, and it's all conceptual to us. So emergency management, and particularly in the recovery and the resilience side, was mostly conceptual until 2014, where we really had to hit the ground and start running. Just some of the statistics, and this is more of an eye chart, but 26 inches of rain in our 2015 flood. I understand that FEMA brought video footage of our flood in 2015 to Texas and said, hey, you guys are getting a lot of rain, this is what it could look like. And that really helped shape the response in Texas. I don't know if that's true or not. If anybody from Texas could help verify that, that's what I heard. But we saw significant flooding, almost a good portion, at least half of our state was impacted by this, and really kind of helped us redefine how technology and innovation was coming in. The governor has authority in our state to evacuate our jurisdictions that are designated as evacuation zones along our coast. So in one executive order, we can ask as many as a million people or more to leave our coastline. So that takes a lot of coordination, and technology and innovation helps us in doing that. Seeing 68 plus shelters open with 7,800 people, it was big for us. Again, maybe not on the Texas scale or some of your other disasters that you may have had, but for us in a cobbled together Department of Social Services and American Red Cross venture, we learned along the way. And again, I'll talk about how we leveraged technology in along that process. But let me go back to our team. Our team has been fairly consistent as we've moved through these last 6 years. So that's been a benefit for us. We've not seen significant turnover in our executive leadership group, as well as our ESF primaries. And so being able to get the job done, understand what the real issues are and how to get to the root causes, and then how to use this technology stuff and what we need out of the technology to get the work accomplished has been critical. So if you start from the University of South Carolina in '96 and move all the way to where we are today, the lessons that we've learned focus a lot on who are you bringing to the table when it's time to begin a technology effort. The more folks that you can have from different perspectives in different groups or breakouts can really help improve what it is that you're trying to accomplish. Especially if you're looking at an off-the-shelf model, there's capabilities and functions within it, but is that what your team needs? And a lot of the off-the-shelf models have a requirement to build workflows and map your business processes. And if you've not gone through that deliberative process, your attempts at cobbling together technology you'll spin your wheels for a long time. And we did a lot of that. We just said, just give me a board and I'll start typing information into it, and it'll get us to the solution without taking into account those step-by-step processes and who needs to review and where do you get the resources and how quickly people need to report back. So from an innovation approach in South Carolina, we've used many different breakout groups or working groups to accomplish this. For the solution that I'll be showing you today, which is Palmetto, it is a small company startup, Earth Technology Integration. Came along through a National Guard connection back in 2008. They were doing some neat things with geospatial technology and imagery and loading that into a Google Earth platform. Doesn't exist anymore, sort of, and giving us the ability to map data and information that was helpful to us, that our commercial off-the-shelf vendor really didn't have a good mapping solution at the time. They hadn't partnered with some other mapping experts, so mapping was limited at best. So as we went along, we just kept getting stuck with no map, with no ability to use data to make decisions, rather than just using data to document what we had done. We made a tough choice in 2015, 2016 to move away from that commercial off-the-shelf system. Now, since then, they've made a lot of improvements, so maybe not the best choice, but for us at the time, we had to have mapping. We didn't have mapping with the system that we had, so we went off on our own to develop a new one. Now, we'd seen some other states do this. We'd seen Alabama's system and Florida's system and Virginia's system. So we had some understanding that they had not only built their own systems, ran with them for a while, but in some cases had thrown them away and started from scratch and went back to commercial off the shelf. So we had to understand that that was possible as well, that our investment could go by the wayside and we'd end up going back to a commercial vendor potentially. But our guiding principle was our team. What is it that we need? What is it that we want? How do we want to access it? And why are we asking all these questions to drive our innovation and our technology? So whether it's working directly with an agency, like a large Department of Health and Environmental Control, with some of these disasters, we had to evacuate hospitals off our coast. Not an easy task. We had an Amtrak train derailment that caused us to have to move a large number of population of train riders to our level 1 trauma centers and area hospitals at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. That can really task your information management system, especially when the media wants to know who's where, how hurt are they, will they recover? And really EMS was moving so fast, they went to one of the 6 hospitals in the area. We're not sure. That's not a good answer. So bringing technology to the table and saying, if we ever had to do this again, what would you need to make sure that, and again, it's maybe from an exercise after action standpoint, looking at it from root cause and issue identification and solution, how is it that we can leverage technology to address that specific problem? That's how we've used these groups and our teams to say, here's a problem, here's a technology team that's ready to help us solve this. Let's build it, map it out, and go. So our contracting requires basically the director of the company to reside in our facility 5 days a week. We provide the office space, and he also has a lead responsibility to conduct some training. So that means not only is he guiding and directing the team development, but he's also working directly with our customers, seeing how the technology is being used, seeing what the problems are, and then going back to his team to say, look, we're falling down here. We need to make some changes. We need to make some improvements. That's a little costly, but not too costly. Again, South Carolina, small state, small dollars, small investment, but it's instead of buying a lot of capabilities that we didn't need, the capability that we needed focuses on our team and our people and bringing the resources to it. So the contract we have is to leverage software engineering hours to problem solving to roll out a system that is accessible and usable by our team. And we've branded it as Palmetto. It's our system, so I'm not up here peddling a commercial system. This is, South Carolina owns this system from an instance standpoint. Now, Earth Technology Integration would probably love to sell you another instance, but that, as a state guy, that's not me. I'm not here to sell or peddle. I'm just here to talk about how we move through the innovation process. You've got some cards. We're doing a system update at the time, so if you're just spinning, that should resolve itself here shortly. But by scanning the QR code or manually typing in the password, it may in some cases log you all the way in completely, because the QR code should do that. It would bring you right into our training site. This is not the live site. This is training. You can put in whatever kind of fun exercise information that you would like. It's not going to cause alarms and bells and whistles to start going off. But the key, oops, did I move past? Oh, okay, I see what I did. Our mindset here, if we want technology to succeed in South Carolina, and I don't know about your state, but this is the conclusion we came to in our state. With using a lot of the other systems, it required PC use or laptop use. We decided that this was the way to go, that a mobile-first device was the solution from a planning standpoint that would solve some of the challenges that we'd seen in the past. By having a PC-based system or even a laptop-based system, if we want the best information, if we want our first responders to be sensors and data collectors, if we want to have true situational awareness of what's going on the ground, there's the most likely chance that I could access that information from a smartphone. Now, this is the lowest common denominator of technology, right? Small screen, small capability, very limited keyboard capability, and the like. So to make mobile first a priority for us meant bringing down the capability of what could be offered to the end user, but also boiling that down to the most specific functions that were needed. So with that being said, a mobile first design means that a first responder, a county emergency manager, a city emergency manager official, or any responder out in the field would need to have access to tell us things. So to do that, we're going to have to go cloud-based. So we are on an Amazon cloud to access this technology. And from prior experiences with using servers and then moving to clouds, is that if you don't account for how many processors that you need or how much spooling up that you would have to have, you could fail. Case in point, our governor went online with the flood and said, if you need more information, go to scemd.org. 4 million hits on our website within 2 minutes. Brought this thing down. Now that's just a website. That wasn't our common operating picture. But the same thing, that was a web-based server hosting our website that failed because of rapid hits, just the amount of traffic that hit the system. So if you don't have a responsive technology to deal with that, it's going to happen to your platform as well. And we had some system delays as a result of too many users on our system at times, and so we've learned from that. We've gone serverless. We're now using things called Lambda functions to address usage. If you access a function like a significant event, there is back on an Amazon cloud somewhere a Lambda function process making that happen that is not server or core dependent. And your usage model is just based on how much data is being required to be accessed. Again, the hosting of that is managed from a contractual standpoint. It's been minimal for us so far. It's been cheaper, even with a lot of usage and a lot of activities. So a mobile-first, web-based system that is serverless has been a solution model for us. Again, I don't know what your type of technology innovation is, and maybe have gone into too much geek speak at this point. I might be losing some of the folks that are just door kickers and fire hose users, right? So key thing is you want to have a device that you can go to, log in, and it remember who you are, it remember where you left off, and bring you to specific information. So that mobile first, dumb it down to is the core fundamental, what data points are you trying to collect and why, make it to where you can run emergency management from your index finger. Some of my folks call it something else. But emergency management from your index finger, and can you provide live updates and see what's going on? Can you be fed and feed at the same time? And so all of our user interfaces are from that mindset and methodology. The demonstration roles that you have available to you is just a sampling of some of the functions that we have. We're also doing our entire county grants management function for the Emergency Management Performance Grant through a spin-off of this. So you can upload your progress reports, your financial reporting, and keep track of your application and make revisions from your mobile device as needed. And with the camera, we're leveraging those technologies as well, so you can snap a photo, pull that information in, and go, rather than having to force yourself back to a document scanner or the like. So our key points here is it's the teams you bring to the table. It's a mobile-first mindset that says, okay, it's going to be a fairly dumbed-down interface for data collection. Now, if you're not in the mobile view, if you're using a tablet or a laptop, you do get the full GIS mapping capability. You get all the functions on the left-hand side of the screen. If you click that little 3-line hamburger up at the top, that will open up the menu of all the functions. And over on the right-hand side is all the GIS layers that we have the ability to access, down to the fixed nuclear facilities in the evacuation zone B1 by the VC Summer Nuclear Station. We can get all the way into that specific zone, tell you how many people are there and what critical infrastructure is inside that zone, so that you can make sure the notifications are made. That's what we mean by mobile first. Basic data entry from a phone set up by the user. A fire operator needs to communicate specific information that a public health worker doesn't, and vice versa. So we set up the log accounts and passwords and permissions to account for who is the user, what functions do they need, and how do they function. We also hand administration down to decentralize the management of it. Our counties can administer their own accounts, and they can bring in, and they are responsible because of a home rule state, bring in our municipalities so that they too have their system. If a city wants to manage their resources through this system, they can, and only by checking a box would they kick a resource request up to the county to say, now I need help from you. And then the county, if they're not able to meet that need, would be notified via a text, smart device, or an email that would say, hey, the city just asked you for something. Click here, it'll automatically log you in, and you can see what the request was, or if you want to fill that request, you could do that from your mobile device at 3 a.m. without having to get out of your bed and log into a PC and address that request, or hit the, let's let the state do it and send it to us. And then we begin managing that process. Now, sometimes that happens, right? You guys don't deal with that, ever. All right. So collaborative partnerships, mobile-first mindset, and lastly, what I want to talk about in the last little bit of time I've got left is how to overcome inertia. And by inertia, I mean problem identification and solving it with innovation and technology. First example, 2014 ice storm. We lost significant numbers of customers with power. Our power outage was huge because of ice that brought down power lines across our state. End result, that was a $200 million ice storm because of just cleaning up debris and repairing the power lines. Expensive event. But we were watching our ORS, our Office of Regulatory Staff, keep track of all of our power providers by going through a phone book. They would call and say, what's your outage today? Okay, and they would type that into an Excel spreadsheet, and at 2 times during an operational period, they would bring us the updated spreadsheet and say, here's your outages. Now, fortunately in South Carolina, utilities were required to report via regulations, so that was help. We had a little bit of tooth that said, yes, you must provide an answer, but the innovation was horrible, right? Excel spreadsheet and phone calls. And for some of our municipalities, that meant the co-ops, that meant the guy that was up climbing the line was having to come back down, answer the phone, and talk about how many people were still without power. So we sat down, again, bringing the contract team that resides in our office, sitting down next to those that are dealing with the problem, where there's inertia going on, where process is just too slow and not innovative, and come up with some solutions. Let's automate that entire process to where some of these utility providers have a website with that data feed on it. We're not talking about screen scraping, because URLs change about every 5 minutes, and you lose your feeds every time somebody updates a web page. let's go directly to and pull that data in. Let's automate it. And if we can't automate it, let's set up an automatic messaging system to where their phone would buzz, they get a link, click the link, type the number for outage, hit send. All users are automatically updated at that time. So that's where we are now with power outage, and that's leveraging technology, people, groups, stakeholders to overcome some inertia on how to address that. Now from your mobile device, when you first log in, you'll encounter a card that refers to power outages. It'll give you a number. That's a good number. Whether it's a FEMA VTC, a governor's press conference, or the next meeting, or what's the power outage? Oh, I got that right here on my mobile device. So it's briefing points. It's able to communicate that and pass that information along. That's one way that we've overcome inertia, by using technology. And I mentioned the Department of Health and Environmental Control, whether it's evacuating folks from an incident site or evacuating a hospital or keeping track of hospital bed counts. Let's move this into a system that makes the most sense. Who are the operators? Again, small, local understanding of who the players are. What are their constraints in terms of accessing the technology? How do we get them to play along, enter data, and keep everybody informed? And try to make it as painless as possible. It doesn't require grant purchases or special systems or user fees associated with that. South Carolina, EMD has bore the cost of a majority of the development of what we have at no cost to our counties. So there's no fees for that. Some other examples that are worth, when you have to evacuate our coastline with 1 million+ people, that's over 400 TCPs, traffic control points. That's law enforcement officers from local, municipal, county, as well as state, as well as National Guard to help staff all these TCPs. So we're now in the development process of saying, look, what I need is a roster of anybody that could be possibly standing in a TCP. I need a roster of all the TCP locations and an agency permissions that would allow an individual to assign a person to a TCP. So we're building an IAP on steroids for our Department of Public Safety Highway Patrol that will keep track of the people, the TCPs, and the staffing assignments and the shifts that are needed, because you got to stand these TCPs up for 24/7 for at least 3 to 5 days, and there's staff turnover and the like. Doing this in a traditional paper form method was next to impossible. So we've now got an ability for the Charleston City Police Department to keep track of who their people are, assign them to the specific TCPs at the specific shifts, hit save, and the IAP updates automatically. So we're able to keep an incident action plan for something that's really kind of outside the terms of what an IAP was really probably designed for, to meet those customers' needs. Last one is, you've seen an example here today, and yesterday. Chad Beam and others demonstrated the use of a Survey 123 tool to go out and collect information related to health and safety checks or SAR searches. After some of our floods, we had to go door to door. Did the people evacuate or not? We'd find people sitting in a recliner with water up to their chest going, well, we thought it might get better. Get out. I didn't want to miss the FEMA person, and I thought I might miss my check. Get out. We had to make those door-to-door checks. So, and the fire departments were doing that. They went out and found a great tool. Perfect. They're leveraging technology to help meet their mission. But they've got data that we needed to see up at the state. Who had to evacuate? Who's good? Who's not? Where's the hot spots in terms of evacuation and the like? The solution was that program, through some help with NAPSIC, and we're going to keep working with them a little bit on this to get everybody on board through a governance that makes sense, is let's ingest a REST service. From Palmetto, you can hit the plus in the upper right-hand corner, type in your URL, and bring in any REST services that you may have on the fly. So we were able to ingest that data with just one URL and an understanding of how to get it and pull it into the system and make it available. So within 24 hours or less, we were briefing the governor with, hey, here's what local fire departments are seeing on the ground. Here's a picture they took of this house and the people inside. That can really shape your next press conference when you're trying to address what the issue is. We've got folks that are still in their home. We need to message this somehow. Or we need to communicate what the risks are, or which neighborhoods are dry and which ones aren't. Having that information that's available and accessible for the entire community, what's the impact on the public health arena? What's the impact here or there? All of that was made possible just from a REST service. So the last point that I want to make from a technology standpoint with overcoming inertia, in your local governments, municipalities, somebody's going to find a nice, shiny, bright tool. They're rolling out every day. Make the requirement that if you're interested, particularly maybe use your grant funding requirements, if they're interested in using your grant funds to do it, does it have the capability to export the data out in the form of a REST service, KML or something, and can it be ingested? Because an information collecting system that is siloed to just that agency's need is really missing out on the big picture, and it's not a big investment for a company to add the REST service side, to be able to export that data out. Even if it's an Excel spreadsheet, we can manually ingest those as well. Or in some cases automate it, if we can have it posted to a location. So really, that's all I have. It's a long time in coming from '96 on. We've learned the hard way. We've spent dollars that are now gone and could have been used for much better emphasis. Again, I've boiled it down to these three keys, and these are the 3 keys for South Carolina, is to use your collaborative planning teams to work on specific issues, to overcome that inertia, and keep it simple. And if you keep it mobile first simple, you'll bound to have a recipe for success. At least that's what we've enjoyed.
Thank you so much, Steve. I appreciate that. And there's some interesting, I think, points here to connect in with in terms of the mobile-first approach that you've taken that you don't necessarily see across the board at this juncture. But I think it ties nicely to some of the field data collection efforts you can use with debris management. It kind of gets people in that mode of using the field-first approach and mobile-first. I don't know if any of you got a chance to test the application, but I know I was able to get it up and running. Pretty intuitive. So I did want to give folks a chance, if there's any questions for Steve, this is a really great opportunity to raise some discussion. I think we've got one question from Daniel up here, and we've got a microphone.
While the microphone's coming up, that one of the functions in this tool is an after-action report. So if you'd like to ask a question or tell me what you think, fill out one. There's a little pink plus button in the bottom right-hand corner. All the interfaces are the same. This is a demo site, won't hurt you. There's even a box that you can check to keep it anonymous. You can check the anonymous box, type in your comments, and hit save, and it will be added to the list, and all of us can see that. Again, sharing that information, sharing your thoughts and ideas. Question?
Okay, so I have a multifaceted question for you.
Okay.
Dealing with resource management, obviously there's a process and procedure behind that, as well as an inventory of people that could fulfill or equipment that could fulfill a role.
Yes.
How do you guys deal with that in South Carolina for engaging with your partners to keep that information up to date, et cetera?
So I'm going to point back to our 3 steps here. Resource management is, again, we've been at this since '96. We've seen some of our larger incidents, up to 1,500 resource requests. That's everything from I need some radios to I need a FEMA Type 1 USAR team coming in on the resource request standpoint. So keeping track of inventories is tricky, especially when the federal government comes into play, because they bring a whole new list of inventories and assets. And their federal request process is a little bit separate, but we're going to keep a record on our side in the resource request piece to account for that. So we're doing real-time dollar tracking and burn rates in our tool as well. You can see some of the samples of dollars that are coming in associated with that. It involves collaborative partnerships, meeting with those groups, the users and stakeholders. It means leveraging grants to say, hey, if you want some of this emergency management performance grant, one of the work elements that you're going to need to do is update your resource inventory on an annual basis. It's just a little bit of dollars, but we leverage it with the technology that they can do that from their phone or PC, and we have folks that will help them do it if they get stuck and walk them through some of the naming conventions. And then if there is inertia, let's bring the IT team, set them down, look at the problem. Is there an IT solution that we can do? Can we put some QR barcodes on that equipment and make it scannable and go? Sure, why not? If this technology is available and we've got the engineers sitting there, they're like, hey, if that's what you want, let's do it. And they're also a little bit savvy on, maybe there's a smarter way to do it. You get that leveraging of technology, people, stakeholders, and resources all together and walk through that. And we still got some room to do in terms of capturing municipality resources. Right now, we're kind of just at the county level, but with a little bit more time, we'll get to that. Yeah.
That's a great question. Do we have any other questions for Steve in the audience?
So, can you elaborate a little bit more on your use of your event-based volunteers, your CERT teams, and even the Civil Air Patrol squadrons, and helping you do those taskings, such as traffic control points or PODs that really does leverage?
Okay. So if it's something like a traffic control point, that's in a pre-identified plan. Our hurricane plan would account for the total needs, and then we're just resourcing with those law enforcement entities or National Guard supplement support to cover that. So there's an established process. We meet on an annual basis to review the hurricane evacuation concepts and plans, make sure agencies are aware. Our Department of Public Safety goes through and line by line reads through the IAP on an annual basis with the stakeholders that are in there saying, okay, Charleston Sheriff's Office, I have you down for 4 officers at this location using South Carolina Mutual Aid 6 as your emergency backup talk group. And here's the phone numbers and contacts, and here's your site map. Any questions? Has the road been updated, DOT? No? Okay, good. And that's really the collaborative process that takes place through the DPS, a very complex piece. Civil Air Patrol, when FEMA's in town, that's a federal asset. We got to go through them so that we make sure that it's coordinated. We're not double tapping that resource. A state request plus a federal request equals 2 requests for the same thing. That happened, sorry. So you got to work through those pieces. And then again, if it's a need, if someone's saying, I need this, it's typing it in as a resource request. Even if we're entering at the state level that it's a state need, we'll document it as I need it and keep it updated. When is it on scene? When is it demobilized? And what's the burn rate cash-wise so that we can account for the operation. When you're briefing the governor saying our burn rate's about 5 million a day, sir, that's a pretty tough thing to brief, but at the same time, we're meeting mission. And that's what it's about. I can talk to you more offline on that too.
Any final questions for Steve? We have about time for one more. I see one more in the audience back here. If you can pass the mic. Charlotte's bringing it up.
What do you got? When you have a big event with a potential for disaster and dark areas where you don't have cell connectivity or Wi-Fi, how do you handle that?
Yep. So we've got a pretty robust state communications office that can push some mobile resources and towers downrange. So we can set up a mobile cell tower fairly quickly, especially if we know we're using, that's a whole nother briefing, but we're using military intel analysis to figure out what's the most likely impacts from a storm, identify those, keep resources out of them, and be able to push resources back in quickly. So with communication outages, we anticipate it, plan for it, and have resources that we can push in and do that. For the damage assessment piece, we've moved that to where it's offline, to where you can go out, do your damage assessment, pulling in direct the parcel data that's already been pre-coordinated from our citizens, do the damage assessment, bring that back, upload the data, and voila, we're tracking both PA and IA on our latest update of damage assessment offline or can stay online. And we're literally watching the parcels change colors as folks are conducting their damage assessments or preliminary damage assessments with FEMA.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Steve. I appreciate it.
Contact information for myself is also, you have some on our card. Again, for me, talk about what Palmetto is. If you're interested in something like Palmetto at your state, there's the contact information there will be included in the briefing. Just as an announcement, our ETI would like to offer the free use of this system for over 90 days. If you'd like to have your own instance and start tinkering with it, they'd love for you to have that opportunity. I'll just make that aware to you. Again, not selling here, just a neat opportunity.
Great. Thank you so much.